All right, Curtis, thanks for joining me tonight for a bit of a chat. I see you're in the library, literally reading some books by the looks of it. How's it going?
Yeah, good mate. All good. Yeah, just had an Airbnb here in Chicago, so yeah,
Beautiful,
got all the encyclopedias behind me.
mate. Starting up for Wingfoot next week. We were just talking about previously, but yeah, how excited are you to get your first win and get over to another major?
A couple of weeks ago was obviously a pretty awesome feeling to get away with a win. Tough golf course. It's a golf course I've played maybe four times. I think I've played that event four times now. I seem to enjoy that course every year I go there. So yeah, this year it was kind of odd. Like I got off to a nice start and I just felt really comfortable and with all things like considered with how my golf's been going, like I don't know, I just felt ready to take control and I didn't want anyone to beat me. So I was kind of desperate to be on top at the end of the week. And fortunately that happened.
Mate, the willpower, it kind of gets you over the line in the end. It was funny, I was listening a bit of the coverage on the television and they kind of like to always relate Alistair Mackenzie designs to Australians playing well and obviously kind of suited your eye. Obviously, there's a few different trees in the way, kind of seeing from that last 18th hole, and you made a cool putt there. But how comfortable you were playing in an event with like a Mackenzie design similar to Sandbelt Australian golf?
Yeah, well, that's a golf course with bent greens, and they're every year you go back there, they're really firm. It's been tinkered with quite a lot, I think. So it's not really like a traditional Mackenzie, but you can still see a lot of shapes there.
Mm,
It's a it's a really funny golf course though, because like I'm not sure if I've ever played a golf course where it's so important to know where the pin is, like on the tee box,
mm.
on any hole, like par four, par five, par three. Like, I mean, it is crucial to know exactly where the pin is because so many times around that golf course. Like being in the trees is better than being in the middle of the fairway.
That's crazy. That's crazy to hear, like, especially on a Mackenzie design. I kind of did a bit of research on the course, and I think he laid the plans out to do it. Sadly, passed away, and I think Nicholas might have redesigned it a bit of the things on there to get it championship ready or whatever it may be. But it's funny to hear you just whack it in the trees, and you kind of hope the pin's on the right side.
Yeah, well, that's like I speaking about the Mackenzie stuff. Like there are a couple of really cool photos of the original layout, like in the clubhouse, and
Mm.
it does look like a kind of a traditional Mackenzie. But yeah, there's a few holes in particular where like just knowing where the pin is and being biased to missing it on the right side on the tee shot. Like I think seven's like it's probably like a 380 yard par four. You can actually drive it up there pretty close, but the green kind of sits at you like almost like looking at a triangle.
Mm.
And like to get at the back right flags, you have to be well left. And to be honest, like even the left side of the fairways sometimes doesn't cut it because of how firm the greens are. So
Mm.
for such a short hole where it's one you want to take advantage on a tough golf course. Like I've said to my caddy multiple times on that hole, particularly during the week, like I'm just going to hit it in the right trees or I'm just going to hit it in the left trees just to make sure that I've got maximum green to work with.
Mm. No, it was cool to see. Obviously, got up early in Melbourne to see you around the lead. You're pretty much there the whole week. How confident were you feeling going into the final nine holes? Kind of, I heard you kind of got off to a pretty good start, had lots of chances to kind of get off to a pretty big lead, but kind of you were around the lead for most of that back nine.
Yeah, I putted really good all week and I started nicely like through the first seven. I had like heaps of good looks at birdie, and I left nearly all of them short. I don't know
Mm.
why. My putting was fantastic all week, but I just nearly left everything short. So, but I wasn't hitting it great on Sunday. No questions there. I
Yeah.
was sort of just battling it around. But yeah, I got to like late in the back nine, and obviously I was a couple over, and I knew I kind of had to do something. So I made a executive decision that I wasn't going to leave one putt short for the rest of the day. So
Yeah.
I consciously like was really trying to hit everything, and fortunately like hold a couple of good putts down the stretch. So
Yeah, that putt you hit on, I think it might have been 16, par four. Was it 15 or 16? Yeah,
then
you just bashed it in. I was up for half an hour watching it, thinking, just there you go, it just bashes it in. And I think 17's the par three, kind of goes over the hill, that up and over
yeah,
putt. And I don't like to listen to the commentators too much because they kind of, sugarcoat things, it feels like at times. But they were talking about how everyone left the putt short all week, and throughout the day that putt was just really thing. And I just see you bash it 4 feet by, and I went, good on him. He's trying to win the golf tournament. He's not trying to, kind of just hang around. And fortune always favors the brave. And yeah, if you want to talk us through the last hole, your thoughts and feelings. Kind of the coverage looked like you hit a pretty good drive. We obviously seen it rattle around in the trees and kick back on the fairway. Were you aware that it kind of kicked out, or yeah?
No, we heard it from the tee box, Nick the tree. It's a really big shame, like, you finish on that hole in that golf course, because it's the worst hole by like a mile. But it's just a quirky hole. You kind of got to take on like clipping the trees because there's no real layup, and if you don't, hit it over the trees, yeah, I mean, it's just a weird hole. But yeah, hit a pretty good drive. Just clipped the trees that I was trying to cover. Bounced back out. Had like way further into that hole than I had all week. Like I'd had like around sort of like 100 meters all week, and that day I had like 155, I think, meters to the pin. So, yeah, I just was. I think I knew I was in one in front, so I just wanted to sort of plot like a 9-iron to the middle of the green, and
pin short right.
Yeah, I've been struggling all day with a right miss. I was not trying to take that pin on. That was not my mindset. I was trying to hit 1 mil green and then hit a good putt, but unfortunately, right miss in the worst spot on the hole.
Kind of jumped out of its plug mark. It kind of looked like it plugged when in the air, yeah.
Oh, I was like, I mean, I'm one of those guys that sort of walks up thinking that it's going to be the worst possible situation because I believe that it's only positive from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was thinking for sure it was going to be plugged and go up there, and thankfully it wasn't. So that was a relief. Yeah, actually hit a way better bunk shot than realistically I was like kind of trying to. I mean, I was trying to like just give myself a look. It's one of those bunker shots where like you could easily get too delicate and like leave it in the bunker. So I just had decided that, I needed to get it up there and just give myself a putt. And if I couldn't hold the putt, then so be it. Like whatever was going to happen was going to happen. So I actually hit a much better bunker shot than I was thinking, because I was thinking I was going to look at 15 foot. And so I got up there and I had about, I think, 7 feet.
Just outside where he hit a really good drive down there, and he kind of hit a nice pitch to just inside yours. I saw you had the first putt. Thoughts and feelings on the putt? You never in my eyes, I think all the time we've grown up playing golf together, I think he's going to bury this. I just see that him stalking around. How confident were you to hold that putt?
Like pretty confident. I was nervous. I was super nervous. Obviously I haven't been in contention for quite a long time, so it's a weird feeling, because I believe like that's something you kind of get used to when you put yourself in that position regularly, and I haven't been in that position for years. So I was super nervous, but I calmed myself down, and like I've been putting so good like this season and last year, and I just basically said if someone's going to make this putt, this is your time and you're the one to do it. So that kind of settled me down quite a bit. Took a couple of deep breaths and
bang, trust your line, roll it in, and kind of it actually looked like dead center to me. It's that tough little slider left or right. You got to give the hole away, and it looked kind of quick as well. The guy you're playing, he hit a good putt too by the looks of it. But how were you feeling when he was having a putt, knowing you've just held yours to kind of give him the chance for a playoff?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much gave him the perfect read. We were on like almost identical lines. But like I knew it wasn't an easy putt, like, especially to force a playoff. Like that's not the kind of putt you want. No. So I knew there was obviously a good chance that like could go in my favor. But same thing, I always sort of prepare for the worst outcome, which is him holding it and having to go down 18 again. So in my mind, I was thinking for sure that was going to be the case. But yeah, he hit a good putt, lipped out high side, I think. But well, yeah, I mean, it's nerve-wracking watching on the sidelines in that situation.
You'd rather have the club in your hand and the ball to putt, but it's tough to watch. But yeah, now you wrapped up your card for a couple years now, the whole dual season. You're going to the US Open through some qualifying they've created, some format or something. How pumped are you? How's the tour life, the Korn Ferry going with COVID situation kind of surrounding the whole thing?
Yeah, like super excited, obviously, particularly for US Open next week. I've heard the course is like unreal, and I heard it's going to be absolutely brutal. So that's always fun to see. If anything, it's just like another way to look at it. It's just another sort of major championship to try and get under my belt and get some
Mm.
experience. Um, yeah, it's gonna be awesome heading there tomorrow. But yeah, tour life's been kind of crazy with all this COVID stuff. There's definitely been up and down weeks with everything. I think being an Australian, I was more on like a conservative view
Mm-hmm.
of I thought we probably got out a little too early.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, the tour's done a pretty decent job, and I think we've seen. I think they shared a stat with us the other week that only like 15 players have tested across all the PGA tours have tested positive through like 8,500 tests. So,
Mm.
um, like players obviously are being pretty smart. It still is something that's like you can't avoid completely. It was only this week that I was like talking to someone, and they actually tested positive. I found out the next day, so it's just one of those weird things to deal with. But we
Mm.
get tested every week. We're all pretty sensible about what we do away from the course, to obviously avoid it.
Are you guys like, it's obviously the NBA's got their like hub situation going on in Orlando. How similar is that to the PGA Tour kind of model right now? Or are they giving you hope? Because I've seen the European Tour, they have like 3 or 4 hotels you can stay at. You've got one designated buddy, I think they call it, your buddy for the week. How similar is that to the Corn Ferry right now?
It's totally different. So like, it's kind of weird. Like, obviously, I think news spreads pretty quick, but like America's been unusual, like in the way they've dealt with it. Like, I don't think they've got a system in place to deal with it just for the general public. And so, to a degree, like, I guess we adhere to those same rules. We can stay sort of wherever we want, really.
Mm-hmm.
You can Airbnb. You're not supposed to stay with any host families, which we haven't been doing. Obviously, that's just for the risk of spreading.
Yep.
But yeah, you can Airbnb, you can stay in whatever hotel you want. You can eat wherever you want, depending on, each state has different rules. Like when we were on the West Coast, it was much more strict. So none of the restaurants were open to having people. But yeah, like we've tried to be like conscious and only pick up food.
Yeah, more takeaway
And
systems
eat,
and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and cook and eat at the Airbnb. So as I said, like we've tried pretty hard. Obviously, there's always going to be players out there that are just doing their own thing and living their normal lives. But I think the few cases that there've been, I think a couple of them have been the guys that have been, going out and just living their normal lives.
Yeah, I think it's more it's kind of the contrast between countries and political systems, but we won't speak about it today. It's kind of
Yeah.
obviously West Coast, they're more that side of the spectrum, and they're going to wear masks and more takeaway systems and more. Obviously, Melbourne right now is the opposite completely because we can't even leave our 5K bubble. Kind of just taking it day by day. Have you got your own mask? Are you wearing them on the plane? What's it like traveling? I haven't traveled in 6 months now. It's crazy to feel like locked in here.
Yeah. So like, I wear a mask everywhere I go.
Hmm.
That's like 100%. Like it's funny, like now, like I'd never go out and forget a mask now. It's kind of crazy how like that's just part of life here. But like to be honest, like the best thing about getting back out here is like the travel is so easy because no one, not well, airports are starting to get busy again, but not to the degree that they were. I mean,
Mm.
like it's so easy traveling through airports. I mean, busy airports and you just like rock up an hour before your flight and you're on that flight. Like there's no stress. I
Yeah.
mean, you lived here long enough. Like there are airports where you got to be like pretty precise on how long you're there beforehand. And at the moment, like travel just seems really easy. Everything seems so quiet.
Yeah, especially in Houston when I was living there and kind of getting to the airport, it was never an hour before, like Australia. It's kind of, you literally had to be there a couple of hours before because you might be in Terminal 5 or whatever it may be, and you kind of have to move around a bit. And obviously you don't have well, at the time I had just my Australian passport, and that's your identification, and they're trying to figure out if it's actually a real thing. So yeah, it's crazy. Staying on Texas, when are you moving to Austin? I hear Will keeps telling me that's the spot for you. It's very similar to Australia, and the coffee. We'll have to touch on that as well.
Yeah, so I haven't really decided exactly where I'm going to end up in the US. It's one of those things you just sort of learn the places as you're traveling, and currently based in Orlando with Ruff, which is awesome. Practice at a great facility at Iowa, so we have a lot of fun there. But I'm not sure if Orlando is where I'm going to end up finishing in America. I think potentially I'll end up getting away from there one day. There are a couple of places I've sort of looked at and been to that I really like. I mean, we traveled to Austin a couple of years ago, and I've been to Austin. Austin's a fantastic city. As you said, it's awesome. Probably the most like Australia. So it's not the greatest place in the world to travel out of, but I don't think for me personally, I'm ever picking the place I want to call home because of the travel. I know we travel for work, but when I have a week off, I want to live where I want to live.
Absolutely.
Not because it's a good airport. So that Austin's cool. And then another area in the US is the south side of Charlotte, which is pretty cool. But no plans yet. Just chilling in Orlando amongst the lake.
How many years you've been there? Is it 3 years now? 4 years?
Yeah, three and a bit. Yeah, 3.5 years now. So I think I came over in February or March of 2017. So
yeah, okay,
3.5 years.
Yeah, perfect. So how are you getting your coffee in Orlando? Talk me through that, because obviously I'm in Melbourne. I literally just walk out the door and they just hand you a latte, that almond latte that works for you. Where are you getting it in Orlando?
Well, there's one really good spot actually. Funnily enough, Orlando's not really a hip place, so you don't really get much great food or food culture in Orlando, but it is getting better. But there is actually one coffee shop that probably ranks in my top 3 in America in Orlando. It's not close to our house, but fortunately we've now got a coffee machine in our house. So like yourself, which I've seen, which is nice. So we get our beans from Lineage, which is the coffee shop in Orlando, and we just power away in our house now.
Beautiful. So you're all baristas, all certified. How's Ruff go on the machine making a coffee? How does he go?
Yeah, he's not got too much latte art down, but he's pretty on the money with the pressure and gets the espresso right. So just needs to work on his latte art.
Yeah. So how's it living with Ruff? How's his game going? He's obviously in bigger spirits now. We were in Latino America for a couple of years, and he was kind of on the edge of losing his game a little bit. He looks like he's really got on top of it now, and he's having a few good results.
Yeah, living with Ruff's been great. I was very lucky when I moved over here that he was already set up in Orlando, and he sort of let me bunk in with him for a few months for me to get my bearings, and then we sort of decided that it worked, so we've been living together ever since. But yeah, Ruff and I get along great. Pretty much brothers, I would say. Over here, we're super similar in polar opposite ways. It's kind of funny how we go about our business. We come to the same conclusion, but in just very different ways. Yeah, so we seem to work really good, and we've had zero issues living together, that's for sure. But he's doing great. He went through a really rough patch a year and a bit ago. But I witnessed firsthand how hard he worked. He absolutely worked his butt off with Dennis and started getting more and more back on track. And it seemed like every week he was putting a result on the board, which was just a little bit better. And now you play with him, especially when we're in, obviously I don't get to play with him in tournaments unless we get paired together, which we haven't. But, playing with him in Orlando, I'm wow. He's definitely hitting it good, and he's very, very close to doing something very special, I think.
Yeah, that's it's awesome to see how it's obviously really good to have someone who's a great player as well, and you obviously live together and you practice hard and you kind of try beat each other week on your weeks off. How competitive are those weeks, and how helpful is that to have like another? You know, you're not just trying to beat your local pro or your local high, low handicapper. Like how helpful is that?
Yeah, I think it's like it's huge. I mean, we're at a club that notoriously had like quite a few players, a lot less now. So, not only do I have Ruff, I have multiple other players to bounce around with, out in course, which is, I think, massive. It's funny, neither of us are big like playing practices. So like I think you know me pretty well. Like I like when I get home and have an off week, like I want my split second of time to catch my breath, relax, and then I get back into like hard work. But my hard work doesn't leave too far from the range or the putting greens or the chipping greens. I definitely have started playing more because I think for a while there I got too like devoted to the range. Like was probably hitting a few too many balls, but yeah, I like to head out. And it's funny, like we're not that competitive with each other. Like we will have like a couple of money games a week, but it's not like we get out every day and like competing against each other. Like I love going on the course, and I feel like the best work I do on the golf course is taking what I'm working on from the range to the course. So you're not always necessarily going to see like the perfect result. So I'm not going to put myself under this crazy stress of trying to beat someone in an off week when I know I'm working things.
Yeah, especially early on those weeks, if you're working on your front ball stuff or your back ball and you kind of, all right, I'm going to just hit fades, literally Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday I'll have a game and compare against that stuff. That's always helpful. I've always found you kind of, if you just jump straight back into trying to, beat someone on a Tuesday, especially one of your mates, you can kind of just slip into fluffing it around down the fairway and, just, it's not really what an off week is. And you definitely need your Mondays off. To kind of figure out where you are in the world.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing like in relevance to Ruff and I is like just the companionship's like just a huge element because you were over here yourself. You were very lucky, obviously having a great family that looked after you really well. But yeah, like I probably look back now and I seriously see how big it was to have someone to live with and not just be over here sort of on my own early. I probably would be okay now, but I still would much prefer to be living with, Ryan or a housemate.
Yeah, I think the sense of home, I think especially because right now it feels like the US is, in another world, especially in Australia. And it's tough on your parents. I know it was hard for me, especially a lot of my friends and family back home in Perth, opposite side of Australia. It's very hard. It's not just one flight to get to the US. And it is nice to have a fellow Australian you can kind of lean on, you guys were saying your brothers and stuff like that. It's very helpful. I got very lucky. The Jordans, shout out to them, great family. Just, they really took me in open arms. Will looks like he's going to go to SMU. That's just fantastic. I still remember when we went for he was in his basketball games. He was like under 9 or something, and he was playing somewhere in Tomball, and he was playing like point guard or something. He's like, yeah, I'm going to be an NBA star. And I said, it's not going to happen, mate. You might as well start playing golf. Your work ethic's already there. Like it's so cool to see him grow up and, looks like he's going to go to an unbelievable college,
Yeah, it is cool. I've seen the facilities they work with at SMU. So yeah, fingers crossed it all goes to plan. But yeah, like I was lucky enough to catch up with him probably like 8 weeks ago, and Jeff. So it's awesome seeing how he's chuffing along. Seems to be improving. It just doesn't seem like that long ago when we drove up to Austin. We're like finding a coach with him for the first time.
Finding a coach for him. He literally, I've got some photos and I think, geez, was he that tiny? Like he's obviously he's very lanky now and he's kind of going through his growth spurt and all that stuff. But yeah, it's cool to see. They're very, very interesting. But talking about coaches, we obviously share the same coach, Bish, man. How often do you speak to him when he picks up his phone? He's on a weird schedule. He's just trying to figure out if he's a mountain biker or a golf coach. But what a man. We obviously had such a good run there in the amateur days. Like I got to number one, and then you were literally number one, like the next chapter, it felt like. Talk your little synopsis on Bish and what makes him so great as a coach and person, more importantly.
Yeah, obviously I started with Bish when I was like 15, I think. Yeah, he's a funny little man. He's pretty aggressive. I think that's why I like him so much. He tells you exactly how it is. He never beats around the bush. He just says what he feels, and probably rubs a lot of people up the wrong way sometimes. But that's fine by me, because I'd like to know if especially when it comes to the golf swing, and obviously I'm completely on board with what he's coaching. So if he's got something to say, I want to hear it. And I'm not afraid to argue if I disagree. And he completely accepts that. So we'll either stand there and argue, and we'll come to a conclusion, and he'll prove me wrong, or he'll see my side of things. Obviously, playing the system's different to coaching the system, and I think that's been a really interesting, it's probably been an interesting learning curve for both of us since coming to America, because you do just play such a different style of golf over here, and I think like my game young was perfect for playing in Australia, but probably not entirely suited to play here in the US. So it's something like I've worked on like pretty much continuously from being over here in 2017 is trying to hit it higher, because they just play in the air all day here, and pins can get pretty gnarly on these golf courses, especially on the PGA Tour. So you've got to be able to access them sometimes with a 6-iron. I feel like the long holes in Australia you hit 6-iron in, where like here, like the long holes you're hitting like 5 woods,
yeah,
and 4-irons. Like it's not too surprising to see those clubs come out of the bag. But you know, he's a great man. I don't talk to him that regularly, and the reason being, and that kind of gets to your next point, is what I appreciate about him so much. I think like with all his players, he does such an amazing job, like coaching the method, and not only like showing you how to do it, like explaining why you're doing it. I think all of his best students have a really great understanding of the golf swing, and in a sense, like he's kind of coaching himself out of a job. So when I'm here, I don't speak to him that much. This year, I was hoping to get him over like a bunch, but with COVID, that's kind of changed. But yeah, like I feel like I know the system, and I'm not saying I'm one step ahead, but I think like when I do get in touch with him because I'm struggling on stuff, I've already got a pretty good idea of what's going to have to be changed. And once we discuss it, we're usually on the sort of same path, which is, I think it's a pretty impressive trait to have as a golf coach.
Yeah, going back to, he gives the students such a great knowledge opportunity to really take it in, the retention of it, and he gives you the space to kind of absorb how I'm going to do this, how I'm going to literally, like I knew for me it was more of a, I wasn't really technical to start with. It was more feel. It's like literally, how do I, get into left bend, or like, how does that actually work? And I think it was more of a challenge for him to kind of get it through my thick head at the beginning. A few years now, I think it's 10 years now since Bishman, and I speak to him every now and then just to catch up on life. It's not really like a big golf catch up. It's more like, well, it's one of two things, especially in the golf swing. But yeah, I think what makes him so great is he gives the player the opportunity to grow in that, and gives them like that pedal stool. It feels like, it seems that a lot of coaches kind of need to hold a lot of players' hands at times. Like both of us, when we traveled, we'd see our coach once or twice a year, maybe. It felt like that. It's not just because we live in different countries or anything, or we speak to him every day. It just, we had to learn it ourselves, and, you need to master that in your own mind, and, obviously through your skills.
Yeah, I think everyone's different in terms of like what they need out of a golf coach. I've witnessed that firsthand over here, because coaching's a lot more three-dimensional here. Like there's so many different styles of coaching that's going on over here. But yeah, for me, like I've spoken with a lot of golf coaches, especially out on tour, on the PGA Tour out over here. And like, I mean, Sean Foley's an example, and he fly, well, he's not working with Justin Rose anymore, but he was flying most weeks and wasn't really doing too much more than patting him on the back saying it's going to be all right, you know, and he'll admit that. And I've seen other coaches in similar positions, and I've never felt the need for that with Bish. As I said, I feel like I know when things are right and I know when they're not. I'm in a weird position at the moment with my golf swing, because I'm still like in the midst of a change that's not complete. Like some weeks and some days it feels great and other days it feels terrible. But, you know, like I know what I'm working towards, and it's the same thing, you know, like Bish has given me all the information I could ever need to make a decision on whether or not the thing I'm doing is right. And I 100% believe and like feel like I know that I'm doing the right thing and making the right changes for the future.
So what are you doing in your golf swing? What's the big change you're in the middle of right now in a basic sense, so it's kind of digestible for the listeners, I guess?
Yeah. So like one of the biggest problems I've had my entire life playing golf was my pelvis like sort of shifted forward in my backswing. So I tended to sort of stand up mid backswing, and then obviously there's a whole array of things that come out of that. It's hard to present the club on the right plane coming down consistently when your body's moving around like that. So trying to stay in my tilts a little better has definitely been something I think over the sort of first 3 years or first 2.5 years I was living over here. I got really lazy, and like playing a professional schedule is so different to playing an amateur schedule. Amateur schedule, you sort of play like you maybe play like one event sort of every 3 weeks, like over the course of the year. So you get a ton of time to work on stuff and to chip away and just maintain what you're doing. Where when you play like pro golf, like you're now on a schedule that's like 4 weeks on, 1 week off. And I feel like over the course of those first 2 years I was here, I sort of just got good at like pushing things under the rug and hiding things and just being able to play week in, week out and not like put too much stress on myself. But the problem is over like a 2-year period, those small little things that you start hiding away become bigger and bigger things. And that hit me last year. Like I was really struggling.
Yeah, especially when the pressure's up, you know, those little things you tucked under the rug, they always come out. It always seems the opportune time, especially you hit the fairway the last, it feels like sometimes you're like, geez, bloody hell, I'm across the line here. I'm like, no, even my things, I'm like, geez, it's funny the patterns you can get into by a poor habit over the time, and one that always goes over the fence. You're like, geez, I wish that's that time I didn't get to put in. And you know, as an amateur, you get that time to get better. How have you managed? Obviously, your professional schedule is more, you know, 3-4 weeks on, like you were saying, and 1 week off. How have you managed that while playing? Are you like on a Tuesday, Wednesday, trying to grind it out, you know, or trying to refine or train or whatever it is? How are you managing that?
As I said, so I think the first 2 years, 2.5 years, I did a really poor job. I think I was just being me, like sort of wanted to be competitive every week. And unfortunately, like that's a really tough thing to do. Like, I think that's something you can do once you're at a point in your career where you're a little bit more settled, you're where you want to be with your swing and body and all that. I think once you get to that point, like a Rory, a DJ, those guys, like they're just maintaining what they've got. They know when they're playing good, they're the best in the world. So it's about trying to maintain being as close to that spot. Where for me, like I still see a lot of development in my game. So in this last year, I've really committed to just like week in, week out, working on it and chipping away. And I think my results show that, because like I really haven't played good this year, but at the same time, like I look at the season as a whole, and it's definitely trending in the right direction, and things are getting better and feeling better. And I'm hitting it better. So it's just about, you know, plugging away until that stuff's where it needs to be. You know, it's so competitive. You've got to be, I don't and I never will be, you've got to be in the mindset that every week you stand on that golf course or on that first tee, like you're there to try and win. You know, like out here making cuts and coming 50th or 40th, it just doesn't do you anything. I mean, it's obviously a nice characteristic to have when in your bad weeks, if you can grind out and do that. But for the most part, like, you know, top 10s are where it's at. And I've learnt that. And so, as I said, making these changes so I'm more competitive week in, week out.
Yeah, it's exciting to hear you're trending. You know, it's such a long journey, especially with your golf swing and learning, you know, being on tour as an individual, and the jump from an elite amateur to professional golfer. It's definitely not for everyone. You kind of have to fully embrace that. It's great to see get a win. That's like, all right, I'm what I'm doing, especially if I didn't feel like I was playing that well and I get a win, keep trending and keep going. I'm just thinking, what was the last question I was going to ask you about that whole thing? So when are you coming home? That was one of the things. When are you going to come home? And if you did come home, you might even need to go back. That's kind of the reality. You're just stuck over there. How's your family and all your friends back home dealing with that fact?
Yeah, so I'm not going to come home at the end of this year, which sucks. I mean, I try and every year I've been here, I've made it home at least once. I love going home to Perth. There's nothing better in my mind to spend a few weeks at home with the family and friends. So that sucks, I think, for both ends, for my family and for me. Yeah, it's just such a tough time with all that stuff. The toughest thing for me is going home. You know, there's no guarantee that's going to be easy getting back. The other tough thing is, like, for me, being in Orlando, the best time of year, and to get work done and like have access to perfect facilities and a bit of time off is the end of the year. So if I go home, like, especially to Perth, like, I sort of fly into the worst time of the year to play golf, which is tough, because as much as you want an off season, like, there are no off seasons. So you've got to put that work in and find ways to get better. So, you know, maybe in the grand scheme of things, staying over here this year is going to be good for me. I'm going to try and use my time really wisely. But yeah, no, it's definitely not a nice feeling, and it's a really weird feeling, like not knowing, like, you know, how long it's going to be before it's a trip, you know, home. There's obviously a lot of rumors and a lot of things going around about quite a few tests and vaccines being on phase 3, which is a very large amount of people. I think it's 30,000 people for vaccination tests. So that's a 6-month thing. I think they monitor. So hopefully, you know, early next year that we'll have a vaccine, fingers crossed, and that will make it a bit easier to travel.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I think probably the best thing you can do now is literally just get stuck in, work really hard while you can keep playing golf. I know golf stops in Australia for the next year. It feels like next couple of years. You might as well pile up your cash, mate. Keep winning. Go and win a major or something. And when the vaccine does arrive, you can kind of travel a bit more freely. But yeah, keep wearing a mask and doing all that stuff. Yeah, just be safe, mate. It's there's just so much uncertainty in the world, and it's just crazy. I'm not trying to get too political with everything because countries differ, but yeah, it's been bloody awesome to chat to you, Curtis. It's been a while. Miss Senior on a week-to-week basis. Kind of felt like days ago we're just playing senior interstate series. Like, I remember seeing you with like a belly putter. Like those days don't seem that far away. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think back to it occasionally. Obviously, I stumble across guys out here that have played with you, and you always pop up. And I always think back to, you know, you're basically like a big brother to me. When I first started getting out in the main amateur men's events, I remember playing tennis in apartments with pots and pans.
I think that was Riversdale, actually.
Yeah, I remember looping for you at multiple events. Some of the more impressive golf I've seen to this day. Yeah, no, it's crazy how time flies.
Time flies, mate. You just got to keep getting better. When I can come out of this bubble, I'll be trying to get back on that tour as well. I haven't stopped. I'm getting faster, weirdly enough. I'm back to 120 miles, getting closer. So just
Wow.
trying to, but it's funny you talking about the contrasting trajectories and everything. Obviously, being in Melbourne, I'm a member at PK. I hit the ball along the ground now. It's kind of like, what's this whole thing? I'm still trying to push the boundaries of getting it in the air, knowing that the US is like that, and it's hard to explain to a lot of people because they just think, oh, you hit it straight and it went 310. It's like that's not long enough and it's not high enough because that's just the game over there.
Yeah, for sure. It's yeah, you have to play it to sort of understand it. As I said, the biggest thing I learned over here is like growing up with Bish, you know, like to me, a 6-iron at any point in my life growing up was like a shot you hit away from the flag. Like unless you were extremely comfortable or in a situation where you had to go for it, like a 6-iron was not a club that you ever attack a flag. But the first few PGA Tour events I played in 2017 over here, I saw guys going at pins and I was like, this doesn't make any sense to me. I remember being legitimately confused. I thought they were hitting, you know, bad golf shots that were going close. Like I honestly couldn't believe some of the pins that people were going at. But on really tough golf courses over here, like you've got to make the most of anything sort of like below like a 6-iron, you know, like you really do. And so the advantages of hitting it far and high are enormous.
Yeah, hitting it in the air, that's the play. Yeah, thanks for your time, Curtis. Always like to wrap it up with one question from the person I interview. So go ahead, Curtis. Anything you want to ask, go for it.
I know you guys are in quarantine pretty hard at the moment, but is there a day for you and Grace?
Yeah. So there was a day this year. It was October the 3rd, but we're still in lockdown. So we're actually just gonna get dressed up and kind of order food in. It's the old takeaway thing. But next year, middle of July, I believe. It's not official at the moment, but we are still going to go ahead and get married. So that's exciting. But it's this lockdown's been awesome because it's kind of solidified the fact that we can actually live together completely because we're literally in each other's pockets for 23 hours of the day. It feels like because like yeah, I think it's you're only allowed to leave once a day for exercise for an hour. That changes tomorrow. You can go for 2 hours of whatever it is. Make yourself feel better and go to the shops for one person in your household. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and get married in July and get it done. It's weird to think that I'm going to get married for one, and yeah, it's going to be next year. Crazy. I think it's bought me a bit of time to kind of come to the facts with that, but I'm definitely excited. I see you've got a girlfriend now, apparently, allegedly.
Yes, rumors are true.
Rumors are. So I heard a rumor, and two, I was trying to get it confirmed. I haven't seen anything official on Facebook. That's kind of the whole telling sign, apparently.
No, it's not. No, it is. It's official. I'm very lucky. I found a pretty good girl over here. So just exploring new things. Obviously, it's different playing golf professionally and traveling when you have a girlfriend. That's a very different thing. So, but I'm very lucky. She's a good girl.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, definitely a different thing. It's not just Curtis and his golf game. It's someone else in the mix. Once you throw an animal in there, wait till that happens. We've got a little cat, Frank. He's he's kind of the best man in the house, I reckon. He's a little legend.
I could be semi-adopting her dog, which is a Shiba Doodle, and it's about as tall as me. So.
Oh wow.
So.
Does she live in Orlando as well?
No, she goes to school in South Carolina, and she lives in an apartment. So fortunately, I get the ability in off weeks to sometimes head down there and spend the early part of the week and then chuff off back to Orlando to get some work done.
Beautiful. You have to find yourself a cool little golf course there. There's a lot of cool golf courses down in South Carolina. I hear that.
Yes, there are. Yeah, no. So I got a great coffee shop though, which is surprising because it's you don't find too many amazing coffee shops in America. So to have one is much appreciated.
Well, you've got yourself a machine. You might need to get like a traveling machine. You can kind of get your own pods. This Nespresso ones are not too bad.
Yeah, yeah, it's a weird one on the PJ tour. One of the trainers actually like because one of the things on the PJ tour is they have a guy drive a truck from event to event,
Mm.
and a lot of the players like put their kids like toys and stuff on those in big plastic, sort of containers to go week to week, so they don't have to worry about taking it. And one of the trainers on tour, who's an Aussie, started putting his coffee machine on there week to week and plugging it in the like men's locker room where he's working on his players. So that's got to get back out on the tour so I don't have to worry about that stuff.
So yeah, get back on the tour and you can start having coffees again, mate. You just that's one way to emulate pressure. I've always found. If you want to do a putting drill, have 3 quick coffees and get out on the putting green and go through your Payne Stewart drills or something like that.
Couple of double shots.
Oh, geez, yeah. But yeah, I bet you're itching to get home when eventually you can. But in the meantime, stay safe. Put your mask on. Go and get another W. Enjoy the week next week, and I look forward to following your progress. Hope you can get off to a good start and get in the weekend and post your +5 and kind of hold on for the clubhouse.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Thanks, Brady. Always awesome talking to you, man.